Hey everybody, welcome back in the shed. I'm Troy. This is Dave.
Hola.
Today we're talking about the top 3 two-hit wonders. But before we get started, why don't you leave your picks below, see if they match ours. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video.
Well, in the history of popular music, there have been a gazillion one-hit wonder bands, and we've talked about them many times before. But there are also a lot of kind of two-hit wonder bands that got off to a strong start, but faded right afterwards. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, folks.
That's it. And let's just get rolling, man. And what's your number 3 two-hit wonder?
My number 3 is going to be the Spin Doctors. And the first song is Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. The Spin Doctors were a band that were formed in New York City, and in 1991 they released this album called Pocket Full of Kryptonite. She holds a shotgun while you don't sit down. She want one man made her. The first song was Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, which went to number 17 on the Billboard charts. Little Miss can't be wrong. The follow-up song was Two Princes, and that actually made it to number 7 on the top 100 on the Billboard. They became a pretty popular band on that whole jam band scene, along with like Widespread Panic and Fish, and they actually played, I think, the first Horde Festival, which was a big festival. Might still be going today, I don't know, but it's a big jam band festival. Just go ahead now. Even though they had a follow-up album that sold pretty well, they never really reclaimed the fame that they had from that Pocket Full of Kryptonite album. And I think they might even still be around today.
They are. They actually put out a new song today on YouTube. I watched about the first 30 seconds of the music video.
Must not have dug it.
The song sucked.
Oh, really?
It was not good. It was not a good song. Yeah, the song was so cheesy. It was so bad. I had to turn it off.
All right. Well, don't torture yourself.
But what's funny is, like, the song Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. When my daughter was first born, my oldest daughter, who's 21 now, but when she was first born, I'd be changing her diaper, and I would sing a version of that song, and it went, Little Miss Nasty Butt. I go, Little Miss Nasty Butt, while I was wiping her nasty butt.
All right, well, that's an interesting little tidbit of knowledge.
Well, I got a lot of, those times and changing diapers, and they inspire a lot of Weird Al type songs, for sure, right. And that was one of them.
You have to record that one, Troy.
I need to, yeah.
All right, well, that's my number 3. What do you got for number 3?
That's a good number 3. It was on my list for a split second. I actually had it on my list, but I came up with some other ones. Well, my number 3 is Ugly Kid Joe, and the first song is Everything About You. So that was on their first full-length album called America's Least Wanted, and came out in 1992. The title of the album is a parody to America's Most Wanted, because their album was called America's Least Wanted.
Clever.
And the band's name spoofs the metal band's name, Pretty Boy Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
So they took Pretty Boy Floyd and came up with Ugly Kid Joe.
Yeah, they borrowed a lot, didn't they?
Yeah. But what made that song popular is it was in the 1992 film Wayne's World. And I hate everything about you. So that song...
The original Wayne's World or the Wayne's World 2?
The original Wayne's World.
Really?
Yeah. So that song was in that movie. I don't remember. I haven't seen the movie in I guess probably since...
I've seen it 20 times, but I can't recall that. But
that's what it said on Google, so I mean, if it's not, you can take it up with...
You read it on the internet, so it must be true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They actually put out the song on their EP, which came out a few years before that, and then they re-recorded it and put it on their first full-length album.
Gotcha.
'Cause I think sex is overrated too.
So the song reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100, 6 on the U.S. mainstream rock charts, and but their second song, what is the second song? Do you know what it is?
Well, I think it's a Harry Chapin song, right?
Exactly.
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue in the man.
So yeah, it was a Harry Chapin song, "Cats in the Cradle," which was actually a bigger hit than "Everything About You."
When you coming home, son, I don't know when we'll get together there.
So that song was a top 10 hit in numerous countries, and but you know, after that album, they put out 4 more albums that didn't really do anything, and they never saw the success that they had from you know, that album and those 2 songs for sure. But what's funny is, like, every once in a while I like to switch it over to hair metal. The hair metal. What's the hair metal
You
station?
listen to hair metal station all the time.
Not all the time, but I like to switch it to it every once in a while. But what's crazy is they'll play that song on the hair metal
Yeah,
station.
it's not a hair metal song.
No, it's not, which doesn't make sense.
Well, I guess in a way, the vocal styles do have a little hairy edge to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, they probably play a lot of power ballads and
They
stuff.
probably wrote the song in the 80s, because I think their EP that had that song on it came out in 89 or 90, something like
Yeah.
that. So I'm sure they were heavily influenced by some of the 80s bands.
Sure.
But they carried over into the 90s and had those 2 big songs, and then they just fell away. You know?
Right.
Never heard from them again. I have no idea if they're
And
still
we're all the
touring.
worse for it.
And everything about.
All right, that's my number 3. What's your number 2? And you know what? I'm hoping your number 2 is probably the same as mine. It's probably Beer Break.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we're back with a beer. And what's your number 2? 2-hit wonder.
It's going to be Golden Earring, Radar Love.
I've been driving all night, my hands wet on the wheel.
Golden Earring were a Dutch band that were formed actually way back in the early 60s. And they were somewhat popular over there, but they didn't really have a breakthrough hit until Radar Love came out. And that was in 1973.
We've got a thing about some old red eye love.
Well, I'll make this real easy. That's my number 2 also.
Is it all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go, man.
We've got a light in the sky.
Yeah, we get the same pick sometimes. We didn't think we were going to match this time. You
Yeah,
didn't
we
think
talked.
so?
We talked before, and I was like, maybe one, and this is the one I was thinking maybe we would hit on. So,
I
and
guess
I was
so.
right.
But, you know, that song was a huge song, and it made them a headliner on tour. And actually, Kiss and Aerosmith opened for them back in, you know, 73,
Really?
74.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
gee, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We've got a thing that's called
Radar love.
Even though they were pretty huge in Europe, their star faded quick. And they really didn't ever get back on the charts until they released that song.
Twilight Zone.
Yes.
It's 2 a.m. Fear is gone.
But those 2 songs were, you know, everyone knows them. I mean, they've
Yeah.
been super popular songs,
Yeah,
but
they play them on the radio all the time.
they still do.
I'm stepping into the twilight zone.
They didn't really have anything after those 2.
They actually put out an album after. I don't know the name of the album that Twilight Zone is on, but they put out an album after that, and I actually bought it when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was any good or not, but I did buy it.
Didn't stick in your ear, though.
No,
huh?
not at all.
Yeah.
White Line did a version of Radar Love.
Did they?
Yeah, and it's actually not bad.
We've got a thing that's called red eye love.
They're one of those bands that kind of stuck around, even though they didn't have any new music, radio airplay, or whatever. And I guess I'd read that they continued on, and in this year of 2025, they played their last shows in the Netherlands. They sold out 4 nights in the
Yeah,
Netherlands.
I heard that. Yeah, that's crazy.
a lot of bands, like we've talked about some other ones that were. We ought to probably do an episode sometime about bands that were huge in Europe and never broke through here. But they had those two massive songs roughly 10 years apart, which is kind of strange.
That is crazy because most two-hit wonders are like on the same album.
Exactly. Like Spin Doctors.
Yeah. What's amazing is they had 30 top 10 singles on the Dutch charts and put out 25 albums.
Wow.
But of course, the only two songs we know are Radar Love and Twilight Zone.
Yes, it is. Well, it must have been the Beatles of the Netherlands, I guess.
They went through a lot of name changes, though. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
So their first band was called the Tornadoes. And then in 1962, they changed their name to the Golden Earrings. And then in 1966, they changed their name to Golden Earrings. And then in 1969, they changed their name to Golden Earring.
Golden Earring.
Yeah. They're kind of like the Spinal Tap, but in real life, they kept changing their names throughout the years.
Make no promises and make no debts, but I love that lady, I gotta come back.
Without exploding drummers.
That we know of. You never know. I mean, everything was going over in the Dutch land, so I don't know what was going on over there. Anyway, that's our number 2. What's your number 1?
All right. My number 1 is going to be the Knack, My Sharona. The Knack were based in L.A. and formed in 1978.
Oh, my little pretty one, when you gonna give me some time, Sharona?
Within just a few months, they started playing pretty heavily on Sunset Strip, and they saw a lot of people come in and do guest jams with them. Some of them were Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty and Ray Manzarek of The Doors. The debut album was called Get the Knack, and it absolutely exploded and went to number 1 on the Billboard charts and stayed there for quite some time. That song, My Sharona, went to number 1 for 6 weeks and was a top pop single for 1979. The follow-up single was Good Girls Don't, and it actually made it to number 11 on the Billboard Top 100.
Good girls don't, I should be telling you, good girls don't, but I do.
And that album, Get the Knack, was number 16 on the year-end charts on the Billboard. But their 2 subsequent albums really failed to materialize. And the band actually just broke up in 1982. Considering they just basically only been out for a couple of years or 3 years, it's kind of phenomenal. But that's how it goes, folks.
Teenage madness that should not get
The band regrouped, I think, a few more times and tried to, make a comeback. And the band permanently disbanded in 2010 following the death of the lead singer and guitarist in the band, Don Feiger. So that's going to be my number 1 2-hit wonder.
That's a good number 1. My number 1 is Quiet Riot. The album is Metal Health, and the first song is Come On Feel the Noise.
Yes.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your boat.
So Quiet Riot was actually formed in 1973 by Kevin DeBro and Randy Rhoads.
Sure.
But they didn't really hit superstardom until, actually Randy left Quiet Riot and then went on to, to join Ozzy.
Sure.
On the Blizzard of Oz, he recorded those Blizzard of Oz and
Diary
album. But Kevin wanted to get the Quiet Riot, he wanted to use the Quiet Riot name. So he actually had to ask, Randy Rhoads' permission, give his blessing to use the name Quiet Riot. So he formed a new version of Quiet Riot, and they recorded Metal Health.
We'll get high, high.
So they released Metal Health in 1983, and their first single was Come On Feel the Noise, which spent 2 weeks on the top 10 Billboard charts. So in November of 1983, it made history as the first metal album to crack the top 100 on the Billboard charts.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, feel the noise. Just rock your boat.
That album pretty much brought heavy metal to the mainstream.
Yeah, it was. And they were on MTV.
Yeah, MTV all the time. And most people know, maybe some people don't, but that was actually a cover song by a Slade song. They were also the first heavy metal band to have a top 5 hit and a #1 album in the same week. The second song off that album was Metal Health, Bang Your Head,
Yeah.
and it reached number 31 on the Billboard Top 100.
I'm like a laser, 6-string razor. I got a mouth.
And I loved that album because when that came out, I was like 12, so I probably heard it when I was like 13 years old or something. And man, that album did something to me.
It spoke to you, Troy.
It
is
did.
what
It
did.
spoke to me. I think it's in my notes. It spoke to me.
Bang your head. That'll help us rock your band.
It sort of introduced me to, hard rock, heavy metal, and I can remember being, 13 years old with me and my friends. We'd have our tennis rackets, and
Right.
we'd pretend like our tennis rackets were guitars, and we would jump off the couches and just like go crazy, man. It did something to me because I'd never heard music like that ever before.
Yeah.
I still love that album, or those two songs especially. Come On Feel the Noise and Metal Health, man, they just really, because I was like hitting puberty, 'cause I was like, yeah, this stuff feels good.
I got you. Well, yeah, that's early imprinting, I guess.
You were in college at that time, so you probably weren't.
Yeah, I was.
You were way past puberty by the time that album
and
came
I
out.
didn't need a tennis racket. I had a guitar.
Anyway, that's our top 3 2-hit wonders. Leave your picks below. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, grab some merch. We got some cool beer steins and t-shirts, all kinds of cool stuff, and we'll see you next time in the shed.
All right, later, guys.